Thursday, everybody. My name's Aaron. I'm co-founder, managing director here at BWG Connect, a giant networking knowledge sharing group. Kicked this off over 8 years ago now. I spend the majority of my time talking to brands that start up to Fortune 100, pretty much under every vertical, just around digital strategy as a whole. What are the biggest pain points you're trying to solve for? What are the biggest topics, and who's helping you solve those problems? When all of those things come together, we either do a webinar like this, we might have a podcast, we might do an in-person event, full day event, or a dinner. If you're in a tier one city, let us know. Love to connect with you over a steak dinner and a great conversation and a good group of people. Um, Today's topic, from prime to peak, unlocking Q4 wins with data-driven strategy. A lot of questions right now popping up across the board of how people are prepping for Q4. Second Prime Day, the first one, kind of mixed reviews depending on where you sat. 4 days, the next one going to be 4 days or 2 days. There's a lot of things going on. And then how does that lead into, holiday turkey 75 or whatever we're calling it now? It was beyond turkey 5. So we've got some great friends, partners, supporters of the network over at Blue Wheel. Longtime friends here, dealing with a ton of brands in the network. They come highly recommended, but not only for their services, but just the general overall strategy and knowledge that they're able to share and provide. And so Jake and Whitney on the line today. Jake, I don't mind. I'll kick it over to you. If you want to do a brief intro on yourself, you can kick it to Whitney, and then you maybe do a little background on Blue Wheel, and we can kind of jump into the conversation. Sound good?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Aaron. My name is Jake Smith. I'm an enterprise account manager here at Blue Wheel. My specialty is really in the bigger businesses on Amazon and planning around that. I've been at Blue Wheel just a little bit over 4 years, but I've been in the e-com space about 8 years now at this point. I started out as a media buyer, but so I love being able to connect with Whitney, who I'll pass it over here to in a second, and her really lovely team that I get to work with on a daily basis.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake. Hi, everyone. My name is Whitney Weaver. I'm the Director of Marketplace Advertising, and my role is really to drive the strategy for our entire department, our agency, as it pertains to Amazon as well as other retailers. And I work really closely with a team of really incredible strategists who are in platform, hands-on keys, making those changes, as well as contributing to the overall strategy across the retailers.
Awesome. So a quick reminder to those of you who have joined as we go through this, if you have any questions across the board, drop them in the Q&A and we will get those answered as real time as we possibly can.
All right, a little bit about Blue Wheel. We're an omni-channel e-commerce agency. We support brands through marketplace management, performance advertising. Our set of services, range anywhere from D2C, Amazon, Walmart, eBay, anything really within the retail space. We've got over $1 billion in revenue managed for our clients. We like to coin, omni-channel e-commerce from click to ship. But you can think of from the click side as, the front end stuff, what your consumers see, and then to ship is, more the back end logistical management side of it. Got to do the obligatory logo slide. This is just a snapshot of some of the brands we work with. You can see we lean a little bit heavier into the beauty and the CPG space, but we do have, some larger partners within apparel, footwear, home, kitchen, things of that nature. So, got over $500 million in managed ad spend at this moment in time. On the agenda today, so we're going to talk, Whit's going to take us through some key takeaways and performance insights from Prime Day, from this last Prime Day, how we can translate some of those Prime Day learnings into a winning Q4 strategy. She'll also take us through some tactical tips for Q4 campaign planning. I'll touch on why some external traffic matters more than ever right now, and then end us off with what top brands are doing right now to maximize their Q4 sales.
Awesome. Well, as we know, this Prime Day was a new frontier for brands, for advertisers, for all of us. And so we got a lot of really interesting learnings coming out of the July Prime Day. And one of the biggest things that we noticed across all of the brands that we work with is that we saw clicks go up quite significantly year over year, about 45%, but our conversion rates were actually down about 30% year over year. And what this is telling us about the shopper behavior is that people had more time to browse, to compare, or just wait to see if there was a better deal, because we saw shoppers clicking around a lot more before they ended up purchasing. And so this is really key for us to think about as we go into Q4, whether Prime Big Deal Days or even Cyber. We know, as Aaron joked, now it's T75, as those deal windows are extended constantly. We want to think about like how the progression of those events play out, and how we can best manage the budgets and the investments to maximize the profitability and sales during that time. And so oh, go ahead, Aaron.
I just a question that dropped in just, over email though, was around, like, do you think that the conversion was lower? Do you think that extending 4 days, because I've gotten this question a lot as well, is
Yeah.
extending it to 4 days, it removes that urgency, and maybe people just had that idea and they got to 4 days out and they realized maybe they didn't need it. Was that an impact, or you think people were just spending less?
I think that was definitely an impact. I think because we saw the highest clicks on day one. So people were, there was that initial rush like we usually see on Prime Day, but that decrease in conversion rate year over year, I mean, it's a couple of things happening. It's just increased number of clicks, but also more time to think about it and say, do I really need to buy whatever thing, or can I find the same thing at Walmart for 15% less than on Amazon? So there's maybe a couple of things that are driving that for sure.
Okay. Awesome. Just a quick reminder, obviously you have questions, drop them in the Q&A. We'll get to them.
Yeah. Yes,
Didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's
no.
something that was like top
Great
of mind, I
question.
think, for a lot of people as they saw this lower rate. Was they thought, originally the hope was if it went for it, nobody likes the 4 day one, just what I'm hearing, right? They'd rather have it be 2 days and they don't
Yeah.
have 4 days of stress, instead they just go to the two. That was a
Right.
huge thing. So awesome.
Yeah.
I think
I mean,
too.
I was of the camp that I was buying things at like 11 o'clock at night on Friday. So there's those people. And then there's some who are maybe a little bit more responsible than me, who are like, I actually don't need that, and I'll just remove it from my cart. So I think it's definitely a mixed bag there.
I think when I think this too, like we extending out to 4 days, when everybody got our budgets at the beginning of the year, right? The assumption generally was that there was going to be a 2 day Prime Day, and so I think like when we look at Cyber 5 and potentially the potential of a 4 day Prime Day next year potentially, right? Like the importance of budgeting and knowing when to release budget throughout the events is super important. Just even more important this year as the consumer is even more cost conscious than they have been in the past.
Yeah. I think
So
that's another
question,
thing leading to that lower conversion rate too, Jake, just
Sure.
the cost consciousness.
curious how this is a question that comes in. Curious how the longer event impacted ad spend and performance. So ROI.
Yeah, so overall ad spend was higher year over year for a lot of our brands. Sales were also a little bit higher, but the return was not as strong. So we were having to pay more to get the conversions and the sales than we had in the past.
Awesome.
Yeah. Great. So real quick, I guess one thing that I want to like focus on for for Prime Day is that day one is still like a key moment in order to make sure that you're getting that visibility, that you're investing heavily, that you're planning your budget to be heavier on day one, because we see that initial excitement and intrigue to start off the event. So making sure that you're allocating budget more heavily to day one, and I would say kind of bookending it to finish out day 4 or day 17 strong as the sale event comes to a close. As we think about what can we do right now and how can we make sure that we have a successful Prime Day or successful cyber with the brands that we're working with now, and a lot of focus is on the lead-in strategy. So for this previous Prime Day, we saw that brands that heavily invested in the 6 to 8 weeks ahead of the July Prime Day saw a significantly higher average rate of branded search volume, as well as a sales lift. And what that means is, or what that lead-in period is doing, is creating that excitement, creating that consideration. So on the day of, instead of searching for mascara, brand or shoppers are looking for your brand, which tends to be higher converting, lower CPC, and especially on a day that's very competitive, getting more branded searches is ideal as you're going into these tentpole events. Additionally, just fuels awareness. So things like streaming TV or just those upper funnel tactics can really help to increase that branded search volume on the days of the event. And we did see this a lot in premium beauty, but any product that needs like a little bit more education or maybe is a higher price point, really focusing on that lead in can be really helpful in securing higher conversion rates as you go into those events.
Yeah, we like to think about, and I'm going to touch on this on the next slide, but we like to think of these tentpole moments as brand building events, and to get people into your funnel. We generally see a significant increase in percentage of new to brand customers coming in this time period. And so you want to take this lead in period, one, not only to educate people, especially if you're at a higher price point, to educate people about your product and why it's at a more premium price point, but it also, from a tactical standpoint, gets them into your retargeting pools. And so you can lean into, low funnel conversion, high conversion intent campaigns during the actual event. If you start doing this, 2 weeks out from the event, in our opinion, we've kind of missed the boat, and it's going to cost more during the actual event to acquire these customers. So as I said, we like to treat these tentpole moments as brand building opportunities. Main reason for that being, like I said, is that you get a large influx of new to brand customers. And so you can leverage, specifically within CPG, beauty, in similar verticals, you can leverage Prime Day and historical data to craft a product mix and promotional strategy, not just for this specific day of sales, but how can you retain them for a longer period of time? So, what products are they most likely to purchase next? What products purchase well together at the same time, potentially for some bundles during the event? You also get a large influx in data that you can analyze from an advertising standpoint. What audiences are we currently not targeting that we saw, a lot of success with, acquiring new customers or converting people who were further down the funnel. So Prime Day is very beneficial, not just for securing extra sales, but these tentpole moments also allow you, to establish a new evergreen run rate after that. The last piece I'll talk about is that the brands that leverage all tools in their toolkit, so paid search, paid social, marketing cloud, organic social, lifecycle, other marketing tools, they generally see the largest increase in sales during the actual event itself. And it's because they are not only leveraging Amazon tools, but they're leveraging external Amazon tool or external tools that Amazon, tends to reward pretty heavily within the algorithm.
Are you pulling in a lot of these strategies? Is it shifting then your overall Q4? I mean, we'll go back to Turkey 5 strategy as a whole, just seeing how this Prime Day went because it's 4 days instead of 5.
Yeah, I
I mean,
think
everything Amazon's always changing, right? Always
Yep.
evolving, which is kind of cool and kind of irritating at the same time in all reality. But in this case, we got to 4 days instead of 5.
Mhm.
The mindset's the same. Are you adjusting things?
Yeah, so actually when it was, when it came out that Amazon was running, we were going to be doing a 4-day Prime Day, kind of how we teed up a lot of our brands that we work with is that this is going to follow a very similar conversion trend to cyber, in that see a large influx in sales on Black Friday. The weekend it's going to peter off, and then you'll see another kind of peak in conversions on, Cyber Monday, right? So, with Black Friday starting on Thursday, or go back and now it's T5 and then T10 or whatever Amazon wants to call it. There's a lot of learnings that we were able to take from past cybers and apply to this Prime Day. But then there's also, when we think about like, what competitors potentially have been more dormant in their ad spend for the first half of the year, and you see them really spike up on Prime Day. It's like, oh, like, that's something that we need to take into account for a Prime Big Deals Day or for a cyber, in terms of, conquesting on our own branded search terms, or people that are really prioritizing top of search, and potentially some more organic activations with Amazon during these tentpole moments. So it kind of gives you a good idea what the competitive landscape might look like heading into Q4.
Awesome.
When you think about what products that you want to have on promo during these actual events, a strategy that you can use is to liquidate products with unhealthy inventory levels, or you can leverage the influx of new consumers to promote your hero new to brand products. And so this is important because what you as a brand decided to do on Prime Day kind of directly impacts what considerations you should take into account as you look at your Prime Big Deal Day assortment. And a friendly reminder, if you're submitting best deals or lightning deals, today is the deadline for Prime Big Deals Day. But if we're promoting your hero new to brand products at that point, you'll want to take into account what products people are most likely to purchase next. If you used Prime Day to liquidate products that you're discoing or products that had unhealthy inventory levels, look at this Prime Big Deals Day as a way to leverage your hero new to brand products and set yourself up for a cyber where you can potentially get people to repurchase for gifting opportunities or buy the next product in your catalog. With CPG and consumables, though, if you really want to focus on your hero new to brand products, you want to focus on acquiring repeat buyers, so buyers with high intent, buyers that have an intent to repurchase your product. With home and kitchen, we're really looking to establish a new evergreen run rate, see an algorithmic lift within your organic on-site search presence, and become a little less dependent on paid media for your top line sales. And if you're, more of a premium brand, you can utilize this time, especially if you're promoting your hero new to or your hero products. This is brand building and expansion, taking up shelf space within, someone's home as they look to rebuy in Q4.
So each of those, you're just using different advertising strategies for every one of those then?
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about CPG versus, an air fryer, like a body wash versus an air fryer. With a body wash, you really want to, best case scenario, get someone on a subscription plan, right? Or do you upsell them into a deodorant or, a face wash or something else within your catalog? With home and kitchen or, a single use product, it's how can you leverage these tentpole moments to get an influx in traffic that helps boost your organic rank that eventually you can, leverage to becoming less dependent on paid media for your top line sales. And that is really how you see, profitable growth within, the one-time use products, the air fryers, the toasters, home and kitchen, things like that.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that happen across home and kitchen. Someone's like if there's a really good deal on a $300 air fryer, and you're getting a major influx of orders on a day like Prime Day, that's gonna like override maybe previous organic placements. And we've seen that halo effect in the actual organic rankings and run rate for brands that have historically maybe it was more challenging because of the higher price point, but it has benefited them long term to really invest in these types of events.
And those are the brands that we got to buy into 8 weeks of, less profitable, less efficient advertising ahead of time, right? Like they had to put in the work ahead of time, have the right products on promotion, have the right media strategy leading into the event to drive intent and drive awareness around the brand. That led to significant increase in brand search on those products, right? So like you still want to make sure you have category presence, you have non-brand presence on these days, but the real trick is driving brand awareness and filling your retargeting pools. So when you get into the event, you can really lean into your low funnel, high conversion intent campaigns.
And is that both on and off Amazon? I think you're going to get to, you mentioned it in the intro slide in the agenda,
Yep.
the importance of off-site traffic. Are we going to touch on that as well?
Yeah, we're definitely going to touch on that, but
Okay.
to long story short, Amazon's rewarding external traffic more than they have, it seems like, in the last 12 months. So having an intentional strategy, if the brand allows it, having an intentional strategy driving off Amazon traffic to Amazon, and or at least telling their consumers, hey, we're going to be on deal for Prime Day using leveraging affiliates and creators to get some more UGC out there is highly impactful.
Awesome.
Well, the last kind of wrinkle that Amazon threw at us when we looked at Prime Day was new deal tenants for the different types of deals that you can run on Prime Day. And so Amazon in 2024, there was some negative press about brands raising their MSRP right before the event and then discounting back down to full price, right? So that is Amazon's customer. They like to say they're customer obsessed. And so that was a negative customer experience. And so what they did was they placed some new deal tenants out there. So you can see them right here. Everything, this percentage off is based off of the trailing lowest trailing 30-day list price. So what we would suggest is holding off on any promotions in September that would directly impact your ability to promote products during Prime Big Deals Day. If you can promote these items and what you had planned on, promoting in Prime Big Deals Day is lower than these requirements right here, you should be fine. But just as a general rule of thumb, you'll want to be aware of when you promote during Q4 and that it doesn't affect these tentpole tenants that Amazon just released in June this year.
Also, a question comes: what can brands do to balance performance with preserving brand equity in Q4, especially for premium luxury brands that normally shy away from discounting? And just a quick reminder to others too: if you have questions, drop in the Q&A. We'll get to them.
I would say just being super intentional, right? Like being very intentional with what products you do have on promotion, maybe an entire catalog that you have, like maybe not promoting your entire catalog isn't within, brand details. But what we like to do as well is for brands that have a more premium brand presence off Amazon is tying it into organic activations that they have within their calendars, new product launches that they might have. I will say there's been more of an adoption recently from higher price premium brands of leaning into these tentpole moments with promoting. It's always going to be a work in progress and to figure out what works best for you and your brand and like the specific conversion dynamics that you see when you're on promotion. So I would say find your tipping point. What's your point of diminishing marginal returns? And from a point of discount versus the increasing conversion rate you see, you don't want to go any deeper than you need to. And so, preserving your pricing integrity, your brand integrity during these tentpole moments is something you can still do. But if you don't lean into it, others will, and you'll slowly lose market share over the years. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Anything I missed there, Whitney?
No, I guess I was just going to say for any like premium beauty, we see a lot of this. There's always this concern. We understand the need to create that balance, but one other way to think about it is offering something like a subscribe and save discount. So you're giving a discount, but it's on, brand loyalty for a longer period of time, which is, more passive revenue that you might not have to like go after and acquire every other month. So that's something else that you can consider in order to keep that integrity, but still offer some incentive to shoppers.
Yeah, and that's actually a really great segue into one of the ways that we leverage Amazon Marketing Cloud is to get an understanding of what products are we most efficient at acquiring new customers on, but also what is the specific like customer lifetime value of those products, right? And so as a premium brand that's only going to discount maybe twice a year, 1 to 3 times a year on these tentpole moments with Amazon, you want to make sure that that counts. And when you go back to your leadership and say like, no, we do need to promote on Prime Day because these items have, X customer lifetime value behind them. And that looks like, X amount of, net incremental revenue over the next 6 months, right? And so you really want to it goes back to being really intentional with what products you have on deal, but also the level at which you discount. You don't want to make sure, or you don't want to, be past that point of diminishing marginal return and discounting unnecessarily.
Awesome. We do have another question that drops in here. Is the off Amazon traffic being driven by your Amazon marketing team or brand marketing team? Maybe we'll capture that when we get to there. So, let's hold that question until we get to that section. We can keep going through this.
It's a very good question, though.
Yes. Awesome. So how do we take, all of these learnings from the first 4-day Prime Day ever, and apply them to our Q4 planning? So first and foremost, always comes down to the money, but budget and bidding tactics, as we talked about earlier, how are we allocating during certain times of the event or leading into the event? What makes the most sense? What is most likely going to have the best impact? We want to make sure that we're maximizing the budget, we're being good stewards for our brands in order to reach the right people at the right time. So we'll go into our recommendations around that. Additionally, looking at aligning products and tactics. So as we kind of talked about with repeat purchasers, or how do we maybe build or increase cart sizes so that we're getting more sales for that click that we're paying for. There's a couple different reports and ways that we can look at how we're kind of sequencing that the product mix in order to maximize the conversions on that. Additionally, something like frequency capping is a great thing to implement, especially on really high traffic days, ensuring that once shoppers have interacted with your brand X number of times and they maybe haven't taken a action that you're looking for, then you can either exclude or start to downbid. And there's a lot of different reports, tools, audiences that can be utilized in order to make sure that you're constantly reaching new people and kind of excluding those who are not obviously taking the actions that you're looking for. And then external traffic, we'll definitely dig into that quite a bit more here.
Yeah, I think when you think about like preserving budget, longer promotional periods, higher clicks, less intent to purchase on that first click that we saw in this first in the first Prime Day, utilizing that litany of data that came in at one point to understand like what your specific brand's frequency dynamics are when it comes to advertising is a really great way of preserving some budget that you can, repurpose to people, later on in the actual event itself.
So this is just maybe this is a progression of like what we expect spend traffic to an account to look like over time. So evergreen, we're seeing page views around 40, 50,000 a day. As we get into that lead in, that awareness and consideration spend spikes up to the top and grows as it gets closer and closer to the actual event. As we see page views continue to spike, then day of, we're investing more heavily in that conversion and loyalty line item as we're seeing conversions and page views hit record highs as we're going through the event day. And then lead out, we're definitely pulling things back in terms of focusing on what is the most efficient, what is going to be the most effective use of the dollars, especially coming off of a big event. We see a lot of shoppers, they've spent their budgets, they bought what they want. And so the conversion rates tend to decrease. So making sure that you're focusing on what is most cost effective on that lead out, but also doing your research on ways to retarget and reach them with some new products or secondary products. So this is a more static version of that in terms of how we like to look at the allocation going into a deal event. So Numerator actually reported that 87% of shoppers had an idea of what they plan to purchase before the Prime Day event for this year. So trying to only invest in getting people to look at your product on the day of, as we've already kind of discussed, you've sort of missed the boat or the opportunity to really bring them into the brand, which is why the lead-in period, again, is so important, not just for premium brands, but for all brands. How do you just keep that conversation and that interaction going, leading to build that momentum going into the event? And so what we recommend is awareness and consideration tactics. This can be through DSP. This can be really aggressive non-branded search. That's the majority of your spend going into the event. So 6 to 8 weeks out, really investing in that awareness. The sales are not going to look great. Your conversion rates are probably going to drop off, but what you should be looking at is traffic, clicks to your pages, store, brand store visits. Those types of things are key indicators that people are interacting with your brand and considering it for the actual event day. And then as we get into the actual event week, that's where we are looking at pulling back on that awareness. Again, you can always reach new people during that time, but most of your spend or most of the traffic is going to be coming through those conversion and loyalty tactics. So this is where you can leverage some AMC audiences too. So people who have searched for your brand but haven't purchased, people who have added to cart and haven't purchased yet. This is where you want to invest a good portion of your budget during the actual event is in these conversion and loyalty tactics. Consideration is still, part of the plan. There's still 13% of people who don't know what they're planning to buy. So you still want to be able to reach them and, show off the deal that you guys are promoting. And then the lead out, again, it's how can we be most cost effective with the budget that we have left for the month or for this time period. Generally, we see CPCs drop off, conversion rates drop off, but it's still a good opportunity to maybe look at ways to retarget or promote some subsequent products that maybe weren't on promo before. So if you had to pick either a lead in or a lead out, I would really recommend that brands focus on the lead in to the event.
And I always think about too, like how can we convert people who, especially within the CPG vertical, like how can we convert people who bought one time to repurchasing again? So you can lean into some other stuff from like a brand side. You can lean into some brand tailored promotions, subscribe and save specific promotions.
Mhm.
So, X% off your first subscribe and save order, things of that nature, right? So to take advantage of, or really to put the budget that you put into lead into good use and have acquired customers with significant customer lifetime value and repurchases after the actual event itself.
Exactly. And speaking of repurchasing, so there's some really great AMC reports that I'm going to shout out Xnerda here for their tool. They put together some wonderful visuals for looking at AMC data. But this is looking at what a cross-product association. So what was the most purchased first product? And then what were those products that shoppers bought after their first purchase or at the same time as their first purchase? And then we can use this a couple different ways. So if you're looking at this report for during Prime Day, you might see that someone purchased product A on Prime Day, and then they maybe purchased a different product afterwards, maybe promoting that product again, going into Fall Prime or Cyber to get them to repurchase that subsequent product, depending on what category you're in. Of course, it might be, if it's CPG, it might be usable or refillable. But if it's like a home product, maybe there's like a line of products that you want to make sure that you're advertising to those shoppers during these tentpole events. And so this can also be used within your loyalty. So how are you retargeting people that have already purchased, showing them these subsequent products, because historically those who have purchased this next. And then there's some other opportunities with simultaneous purchases where you can cross-sell products on product pages or virtual bundles. So there's is a really great report to understand kind of how shoppers are purchasing from your catalog and what's next in which way.
Yeah, we're always gonna kind of see a lull in shopping right after cyber, right? And something I think is it is pretty important is a very intentional strategy in Q1 of the next year of how do we convert people who bought during cyber and get them to buy more. So I think I really love working with your team, Whitney, on the subsequent purchases and building out the audiences who have purchased these products during these specific time periods or have purchased it on deal specifically.
Yep.
And then getting that and then targeting them with the subsequent purchases, like the product that they are most likely to purchase next. It's never going to be a significant portion of a budget, but it is something that if you're not investing in, I do think you're leaving money on the table from a sales standpoint in your Q1 the following year.
Absolutely. And it's all these little things that add up, because it's so competitive on the platform now. Unfortunately, it's unlikely to be like one big thing that's going to change your business. It's thinking about where can I move these levers like a little bit further each year, each month, to see that growth kind of stack on top of each other.
Yep, absolutely.
So we're using this then, if you go back to that, to design a different marketing strategy as a whole. Because I see all those dots are small for simultaneous or for, subsequent are bigger. Even if those aren't within my own brand, if they're probably not going to be competitions. They're probably going to be adjacent items, maybe in the same category, but not exactly the same, where then I can bid in advertising because the subsequent might just be, hey, they found that first, right? The pink and the blue could be flipped for in multiple different ASINs, where then I can take my marketing strategy based off this ASIN and target all the pink search terms to make sure when somebody's buying something or it's simultaneously that everything ties together and I can kind of overall change my search strategy ASIN by ASIN.
Exactly. And you can switch out the middle, like which product this is showing, like what is the most like first purchased or new to brand product.
Mm-hmm.
And then how does that branch out afterwards? So you could even switch out what the first purchase is. Maybe you look at your top 3, like highest new to brand or highest selling products and see what those associations are to then create that sequence or create that sequential messaging as you're
I mean, if
building
we're in a
relationships.
nonstop test and learn environment,
Oh
100%.
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every day.
How I started when we started getting this information, what it looked like for me from a tactical standpoint was working with my DSP manager and my search manager on, all right, these products we are most efficient on acquiring new to brand, right? And a lot of the brands that I work on, DSP is the most cost effective way to get people to the detail page. All right, that's it really made it easy for us to decide what items to utilize within our consideration and awareness targeting. And then knowing what they're most subsequent to purchase after that, or what products people who are already brand loyal are purchasing, that changed the low funnel search strategy and like what we show when people search for brand X, and they search for brand X in a product. All right, here are the other items that we show up that we would want to show up in the top row of these sponsored ad placements, right? So that's kind of how, from like a tactical standpoint, it really changed the way we were able to be so much more intentional about what items we were leveraging in lead up, helped me make recommendations on what products should be on promotion as well. And then what subsequent promotions or activations around subscriptions like looked like afterwards. So this is like one of the most groundbreaking things, or one of the tools that has really helped us get a lot more tactical with budgets that just don't seem to keep up, with the pace at which everything is getting more competitive.
Yeah, they can't. You have to be a lot more strategic.
You
with
have to
the
be,
spend.
work smarter, not harder, right? So if you have this information, it gave each, platform its own unique and bespoke
Yeah,
strategy behind it.
it's awesome.
So when we're talking about maximizing our investment, as much as we're trying to increase conversion rate with showing the right products at the right time, as we looked at the previous report, making sure that we're targeting shoppers based on optimal frequency is really key, especially when we have a really high influx of traffic. I know it's not the best user experience when you're getting served an ad over and over and over again, or sometimes you get 3 or 4 commercials of the same commercial back to back. That just happened to me the other day, and I don't know, it's not a great experience. And I don't want to, as a brand, be spending money on people who are just not, they're looking at it, or it's just like they're blind to it at this point, and we're just serving an impression to serve an impression. We want to make those impressions count. And so through optimal frequency, either reporting, we can build audiences off of this. We understand how many touch points or how many times the ad needs to be served to a shopper to ensure the highest purchase rate. And so once they've kind of surpassed that threshold, we can either exclude them. We can look at ways to downbid those who have surpassed that threshold, or things like Brand Plus or Performance Plus through the DSP does this naturally, just based on how shoppers have interacted with the ad, if they are taking the actions or that the advertiser is looking for them to take. If they're not doing that, if they're not clicking, if they're not searching for the brand after 10 interactions, we start to downbid on those. That's through Performance Plus and Brand Plus, which is an AI optimized tool through the DSP. So this is a really key thing for brands to understand and know as they're going into this time of year, because budgets are always stretched thin, traffic is always high. So how can we make sure that you're constantly refreshing and reaching new high intent shoppers instead of, hitting someone over the head with your ad that's not, taking the actions that you want.
I think having worked in e-commerce now and digital marketing now, like I think I'm even more cynical towards like the campaigns that don't have the proper frequency settings on them because I'm
Yeah.
just like, come on, like we're just wasting money at this point, and I get more mad that I keep
Yeah.
getting hit over the head with the same product.
Yeah. And this also helps with frequency caps too. There's another way that we can limit that as well. But this gives us, I would say, a more sophisticated way of bidding and reaching people with this type of report.
Yeah, absolutely. I promised we would talk about external traffic and how that relates to your brand's organic presence on Amazon. And so this is we use SimilarWeb for some of our category reporting and just overall marketplace reporting when it comes to Amazon. And this is the brand that we noticed was really leveraging some less than traditional ways of increasing their product page views. And a lot of that came from what SimilarWeb considers to be other, so curated wish lists or affiliate influencer create curated lists, wish lists, leaning into activations with Amazon on their homepage, kind of some of those other uh, auxiliary tools that you have at your disposal to drive traffic to Amazon. And so, and you can see that they saw 156% increase year over year in the organic traffic. And what that related, turned out to produce was also 140% increase in their organic traffic coming from on-site search. And so, as Amazon has taken away organic placements in favor of paid placements on site, it's become harder to kind of hook into the algorithm and see the organic momentum increase. One of the ways that we see brands that are effectively growing their organic search on site, which is how you grow sales on Amazon's the first step, is that they're really leaning into auxiliary ways of driving traffic to the platform, specifically with influencers and creators through some wish lists and things of that nature. It also kind of helps you circumvent some rising CPCs and CPMs on the platform themselves. So when it comes to executing something like this, which I remember is the question, is like, does your Amazon team execute it, or does your brand team execute it? It really has to be the brands or the teams working together, in my opinion, because we have in the early days of testing this out and running paid social to some brands, we were optimizing for the lowest CPC possible, but it ended up actually being hurtful, or it wasn't as fruitful as it could have been because the intent to purchase in those audiences was lower than if we had optimized campaigns a certain way or if we had leaned into some different tools like Lifecycle and things like that. And so it really needs to be your Amazon team working with your brand team and curating high intent audiences, high intent campaigns that will drive not only traffic but conversion from those sources as well. That's what Amazon kind of needs to see to help close the loop and raise your product within the organic search results themselves.
And that pops in here. What are the best tactics for driving this external traffic? Because I totally agree with you. There has to be an Amazon team component.
Yep.
Because if you're driving massive amounts of traffic, that's the wrong traffic and it doesn't convert, that is not good. That sends the signal,
Bad.
people don't want this item.
Right.
Yep. It might not be the right people don't want it. It's just all of these people are not quite lined up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really
that is what are the best tactics for driving this external traffic is the question specifically.
Yeah, so I worked with an influencer-led brand, and we actually launched their seller account for them. We achieved a seven-figure run, a 12-month run rate in 6 months. One of the ways we did that was really leaning into Prime Day with their influencer group that they work with. That they had some data from their D2C site that said when we work with these people, they drive an incredible amount of conversion. So especially if you're a more premium price point, I really like working with influencers and affiliates and leveraging UGC that way, because you can also repurpose that content. If you negotiate usage rates, you can repurpose that content in your life cycle, on your PDPs. And if the brand is open to it, I also really love leveraging life cycle, so email and SMS. Paid search and paid social have their places, and we're going to let Whitney talk about Amazon pulling out of Google Shopping ads here in a second. But I really like high intent audiences from influencer and affiliates, as well as your life cycle channels.
I would agree with that. I think we see the best conversion rates. You know that those shoppers who are, following their favorite influencers, they're going to be more apt to click to engage based on, what they're seeing from those influencers versus just another ad. I mean, we definitely see paid search and paid social help with traffic to Amazon, but we can tell when something goes viral or someone big has posted about a product because we see that influx on Amazon the day of. And so then we're hunting for what happened on TikTok or whatever to influence this type of spike.
They'll always quote Whitney, and what she likes to say is that Amazon's a very reactive platform, so it reacts to what's happening around it, right? And so what we can see on our side is the increases in PDP traffic, and are they, proportionately less or more than the percentage in, paid brand search that we're seeing, that search volume coming in. So, high intent audiences from off platform, however that works for your brand. If you're highly efficient at driving conversion through through Meta, and it works really well on your D2C site, lean into that. But I think it does come down to brand specific, but I have seen a lot of good success with influencers and affiliates.
And this is my plug too, I guess, for bringing the whole team together. Just like understanding when either a PR event or some sort of influencer campaign is going live, even though it might seem like two different parts of the world when we're talking about TikTok and Amazon, they work together, maybe not as directly, but we've seen this happen where we're like, oh my gosh, sales are like 2x of what they were yesterday. What's happening? And then we're trying to figure it out on the Amazon side. I think those moments where we can come together and plan for that, make sure we have adequate budgets, we're using similar language in our sponsored brand ads that are part of the influencer content, all of that can really work together to take that even further. So that would be my
quickest way to not get the most out of your influencer and organic activations is to run out a branded budget, and
right.
and then
Exactly.
your competitors are in your search, or then the competitors are on your search pages, right? Bidding on your own keywords. So giving the teams proper time to collaborate and make sure that, Whitney's team, for example, has enough time to move budgets over on the actual day that we expect these activations to go live is super important. Yeah, that is the quickest way to lose money or lose sales. Right. Is allowing that to happen.
Yeah. Awesome. So we will move on to external traffic opportunity with Amazon shifting away from Google Ads. So Amazon has been slowly doing this over the last couple of years. I feel like every year since 2023, there's been a little bit of a uproar of like, what's Amazon doing with Google? And they have officially cut their spending on Google Ads. For how long? Who knows? We'll see. I suspect they're leaning into their own ways of marketing versus giving that money to Google. That's my conspiracy theory. But this is a really good opportunity for brands to kind of take back their Google search, because Amazon was investing a crazy amount of money each year, almost $3 billion into Google Ads. And so what that meant is higher CPCs, obviously the ability to actually show up when a titan like Amazon is taking over that paid search space. And so what this allows brands to do now is take advantage of lower CPCs on branded terms. Also make sure that have more control over which products are showing up in your category for your brand. Amazon was showing, what's the highest seller, what's engaging the most, and it might not be your top seller, or it might be a competitor's product. But this gives brands an opportunity to kind of regain that market share within Google and show the products that are working best for that brand or that they really want to push, and taking Amazon out of the equation. Additionally, there's some cons that we have to think about as other big retailers may swoop in to dominate these ad placements as Amazon exits. So Target, Walmart are likely to start investing more into Google Ads. So now's the time for brands to act, especially as we go into Q4, to take advantage of some lower CPCs. Also, if your brand was seeing a lot of off Amazon traffic going to Amazon, this could potentially lead to a reduction in external traffic. So I'd really recommend that brands use a tool like SimilarWeb or just keep a really close eye on their overall traffic, because if Amazon was responsible for driving some of that traffic from Google, you might see that fall off. So make sure that you're keeping on top of that and supporting it through your own Google search efforts. And so what can you do now? Brands should act fast, try to capture this opportunity while CPCs are a little bit lower and the other big retailers haven't quite taken over the space yet. This is a great time as we're getting into Q4 to start trying to capture those customers through Google and take advantage of those lower costs.
I think about it as like a real pro for like new product launches on Amazon. So new product launches on Amazon have historically been incredibly difficult because it's tough to get people to the PDP and to convert when there's no star rating, when there's no reviews. If you can, this is just another way of getting traffic to your PDP. If you can lean into, some Google Shopping as a direct back towards Amazon on your branded terms for any new product launches that you have going. We've worked with Amazon on how to most effectively launch new products and heavy investment into awareness tactics for at least 60 to 90 days in the first product when the first product is first live on site is shown to be highly effective in driving sales there. So just to close this out here, some tactical tips to implement for Q4, data-informed promotions. So your items on promotion and the level of promotion should be based on data. And that data comes from past promotions that you've done on site. Did you see higher conversion rates? Did you see an actual increase in sales that were greater or, that tied to the direct unit increase that you saw? And the items on promotion should also really be reflective of your AMC reporting, what products are, you most effective at acquiring new customers on. When we think about lead-ins are so important. We've talked about it so many times. I think I'm going to dream the word lead-in tonight, but it's really important for brand building and driving brand search during the event. And then leveraging external traffic. It's becoming a tool that's more and more important for brands to succeed on Amazon. And it's also a way to circumvent, rising advertising costs on site as well. And seen.
Well, that was awesome. And I think we ended like perfectly on time. If there's any last minute questions, if you want to drop in the Q&A, we can get those answered. Other than that, I mean, we like to wrap up just a few minutes before the end of the hour so everybody has a chance to get on their next meeting without being late. I don't see any questions dropping in here today. So everybody, thank you for the great questions that came in. I'd encourage you to follow up with the team at Blue Wheel. They're all around fantastic people. They cover pretty much everything from not just the Amazon side, even into the TikTok, traditional paid search, social, and all that fun stuff. Follow up with their team if you ever have any questions in that space. Look for a follow-up email from me as well. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Love to pick your brain on the biggest pain points, things you're struggling with, different strategies that are popping up, and who's helping you win in this digital space as a whole. But with that, I do not see any other questions that have dropped in here. So again, thanks, Jake. Thanks, Whitney. Thanks, everybody over the team at Blue Wheel, and everybody for the great questions today. We're going to wrap up this webinar. Everybody take care, stay safe, and looking forward to having you at a future event. Alrighty. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you. Bye-bye.